Good day, monkeys. I'm Eddie Braverman, that's Midas Mulligan Magoo, and this is episode 40 of Not Safe for Work on WallStreetOasis.com. This week we're covering the repercussions of last week's bank transfer day and how it fits into the larger story that people are fed up with Wall Street's antics. November 5th was the official bank transfer day, set to coincide with Guy Fawkes Day, since your Guy Fawkes mask has somehow become emblematic of the Occupy Wall Street movement.
Why, Dad? Why?
Now, most of Wall Street has predictably laughed off the move and pointed out that the majority of the accounts that were closed were tiny pain-in-the-ass accounts which actually cost the banks money to administer. However, according to the numbers just released by the Credit Union National Association, credit unions picked up 650,000 new accounts and $4.5 billion in new deposits on November 5th. That's no small potatoes. California credit unions alone picked up 90,000 new members over the past month. And that's just the credit unions, which not everyone qualifies to join. It's clear that the government refuses to do anything to control the too-big-to-fail banks. If anything, the government stands ready to reward their continued incompetence. So it only makes sense that consumers have to do something on their own, and the first step is to put as much distance between their money and the too-big-to-fail banks as they possibly can. What do you think, dude?
Enough of this bullshit. I'm fed up too, man. Seriously.
Have we officially retired the mask?
Dude, I'm tired of being fucking, used and abused. My beautiful face, being the synonym and the symbol for freaking New Age Marxist and pinko sheep freaking rejects. I mean, they can take their money elsewhere. I can take my face elsewhere. Just want to address 2 points.
Drop your mic just a little bit. Drop your mic just a little bit. There you go.
All right. There we go. Yeah, it's a little bit tough getting used to your new face. The doctor didn't really tighten me up that well. I had to use the same plastic surgeon as our buddy Jack Napier back in the day. Just 2 points I want to make is, first of all, it's great that people have begun to move their money to credit unions. I mean, as we pointed out ad nauseum here, banking is a relationship business, and you do not have a relationship with someone or something that just gets your money and doesn't even know your name. That's actually called being a John. But, plain and simple, I hate people bitching, but I really like when people do something about the things that cause them to bitch in the first place. Now, I'm not sure that $4.5 billion is really going to affect how Wall Street functions. I mean, let's keep in mind that MF Global core-signed the shit out of their own investors to the tune of almost $600 million. So this is not really a more than a drop in the bucket, but it is a good start. So I'm hoping to see this attitude sort of trickle up to the corporate level, where small and mid-sized businesses will hopefully begin to do more business with boutique banks and kind of get away from being the bottom of the bulge brackets, to-do list. So the more competition, the better. And if Wall Street really is about capitalism, which I'm not so sure it is anymore, it'll embrace these events. Second point,
I can't agree more. I think, investment banks have no business handling or even being a part of banks that hold consumer deposits. And likewise, consumers should exercise their right to free speech by voting with their dollars and going someplace where someone actually gives a shit about them.
Absolutely.
I don't think this is a bad thing for Wall Street, and I just know when I wrote my plan, the Tank a Bank plan, when I set about to figure out how I would go about tanking a bank, I had to take a hard look at myself, and I actually had open accounts with a decent amount of business with each of the 4 banks that I targeted in the plan. So, and it took a while to extricate myself from the too-big-to-fail banks. I mean, it took almost a year before I closed my last too-big-to-fail bank account. So it's not an easy thing to do. Now, your average guy that's got $1,500 in a checking account, or maybe less or something, that's not such a big deal. But if you're used to doing business with these guys, it can take a while to shut that down. But obviously, the government's not going to do anything to deter banks that they consider too big to fail. So the only thing a consumer can do is move his money.
Well, see, I kind of got to take issue with that point a little bit here because I understand what you're saying, but I think we kind of have a tendency to forget that Wall Street has become a part of Washington. This whole story about Wall Street and Main Street gets on my nerves because it's really not an adequate comparison. Wall Street's kind of the fall guy for what Washington has been doing for better part of the last 30, 40 years, really, but let's focus on the last 3 or 4, which is kind of bullying its way into the financial sector. I mean, if we talk about the government refusing to control too big to fail banks, we're missing out on the real point, which is that the government sort of is the too big to fail banks nowadays. I mean, that's something we forget. We let it go over our heads. We kind of let the constant stream of media lies become the truth. But as I've stated repeatedly for the past 3 years, I mean, once Citi and B of A went back in time to the era when, BFA was Nations Bank, they effectively became nationalized banks. I mean,
yeah, you're right. You're right.
Goldman and Morgan are really not that far off. I mean, Goldman has sort of been scapegoated, but in a lot of ways they're a government bank. I mean, Morgan definitely. So just to say that, the government lets the too big to fail banks act the way they want to is kind of ignoring the fact that government dictates what these banks do in a lot of ways. And the line between, DC and Wall Street has never been more murky, and I really can't see any difference between it. I mean, going back to our buddy Corzine, who's already been kind of forgotten and dismissed by the mainstream media, it's the perfect example. I mean, is this guy a Wall Street guy or a Washington guy? You really can't tell the difference anymore. So
right.
Without going into these whole big societal analyses, I mean, we got to remind ourselves individually and the public at large that the financial crisis and the steady decline of the financial sector was created by bad government policy. So, yeah, the banks need to be controlled, but, regulation shouldn't equal nationalization, and that's kind of the direction we've been going into for a long time. So before, the referee can rein in the player, somebody's got to rein in the referee. So.
That's true. I mean, the system of incentives that government has set up for the banking sector, not only guides these too big to fail banks into riskier behavior, but it rewards it. I mean, it rewards the short term, and I look at banks like Citi and B of A, and I can't imagine why I shouldn't even say that because a lot of our readers work in places like this, but I can't imagine why the average consumer would continue to do business with banks like that, just based on their ongoing business practices. But that's all I'm going to say on that. I mean, again, the investment banking side is completely separate, but from a consumer banking standpoint, you're going to get a much better deal someplace else.
Of course, and we can't forget as much as markets have kind of shunned the little guy investor lately. You need those little guys for liquidity, and you need those little guys to have confidence in the system. So even though an investment bank will not directly deal with, John or Jane Q Public, it is important for those people to have faith in the system because they're going to be also buying your stocks. They're also going to be affected by the IPOs. They're also going to be a part of that market on a, reduced lower level that we don't always think about. But, flows both ways, and right now the shit's flowing upstream.
Yep. All right, man. Well, that's all I got this week. You got anything else?
Nah, man. I mean, we're both new and improved, beautiful and sexy for the 40s of NSFW. So,
Yep, definitely a new look, at least for this month for me. But just to wrap up, I'm kind of gratified to see people actually doing something, even if the big banks don't particularly notice. It does have an impact on the local level, and it gets people talking about it. So I guess that's a step in the right direction.
Oh, we're a country of communities, and local municipalities should be in charge of what goes on locally. And credit unions and small community banking are kind of the first step to that, and it's good to go back to it.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, that's all I got this week. So keep your heads low and your powder dry, and we will see you next week on Not Safe for Work.
Dry powder. I can't wait. Later, boys.
Take care, guys.